The frustration in Gabriella Reyes' eyes was unmistakable as she jammed her key into the stubborn lock for what must have been the 10th time. Griffin O'Connor watched from his truck, parked across the street, torn between minding his own business and offering help. His 8-year-old daughter, Emma, made the decision for him. "Dad, that lady needs help," Emma said, pointing at the well-dressed woman struggling with her front door. Griffin checked his watch. They were already running late for Emma's soccer practice, but he couldn't ignore someone in need. It was just the kind of example he wanted to set for his daughter. "Wait here, Pumpkin," he said, unbuckling his seatbelt. "I'll be right back." Griffin approached the woman cautiously, not wanting to startle her. Up close, he could see she was wearing an expensive-looking cream blazer and heels that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Excuse me, madam," he said, clearing his throat. "Looks like you're having some trouble there. Mind if I give it a try?" Gabriella turned, startled, then looked Griffin up and down, taking in his faded work jeans and flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with calluses from years of construction work. "Thank you," she said, stepping aside. "The lock's been temperamental since I moved in last week." Griffin took the key and examined the lock. "These old Victorian houses have character, but their locks can be tricky." He jiggled the key gently, applying pressure at just the right angle. "Sometimes you have to sweet-talk them a little." With a satisfying click, the door swung open. "You're a lifesaver," Gabriella said, relief evident in her voice. "I was about to call a locksmith, but they wanted to charge me an emergency fee." "Happy to help," Griffin said with a modest shrug. "I do some handyman work on the side. If you want, I could take a look at it properly sometime, maybe replace the cylinder." From the truck, Emma honked the horn and waved frantically. "That's my daughter," Griffin explained with a chuckle. "We're late for soccer practice." "Oh, I'm so sorry for keeping you," Gabriella said, genuinely apologetic. "Please let me pay you for your trouble." Griffin waved away her offer. "No need, it was just a minute of my time." He started walking backward toward his truck. "Good luck with the lock." "Wait." Gabriella called after him. "I didn't get your name." "Griffin O'Connor," he replied. "Gabriella Reyes," she said, extending her hand. He shook it briefly, noting how soft her skin felt against his calloused palm. "Thank you again, Griffin." As he jogged back to his truck, Griffin had no idea that the woman whose lock he'd just fixed was the new owner of Reyes Innovations, a tech company valued at over $300 million. "Who was that lady, Dad?" Emma asked as he slid back into the driver's seat. "Just someone who needed a little help," Griffin replied, starting the engine of his aging Ford F-150. "She was pretty," Emma observed with the straightforward honesty of childhood. Griffin glanced in the rearview mirror as they pulled away. Gabriella was still standing in her doorway, watching them leave. "Yes," he admitted. "She was." The next morning, Griffin was replacing rotten fascia boards on a client's house when his phone rang. The number wasn't familiar, but he answered anyway, hoping it might be a potential customer. Griffin O'Connor. "Hi, Mr. O'Connor. This is Gabriella Reyes from yesterday, the woman with the jammed lock." Griffin almost dropped his hammer in surprise. "Oh yes, hello, Miss Reyes. Is the lock giving you trouble again? Please call me Gabriella, and actually, yes. I couldn't get out this morning and had to leave through the back door. I know you mentioned you do handyman work, and I was wondering if I could hire you to fix it properly." Griffin mentally reviewed his schedule. He had a few jobs lined up, but nothing he couldn't rearrange. "I could swing by this evening if that works for you," he offered. "That would be perfect," Gabriella replied, sounding relieved. "Around 6. After hanging up, Griffin couldn't help but feel a flutter of anticipation. There was something about Gabriella that had stayed with him: the graceful way she moved, her warm smile, the hint of determination in her eyes. At 5:30, Griffin picked up Emma from her after-school program and explained they needed to make a stop before heading home. "Is it the pretty lady from yesterday?" Emma asked, perceptive as always. "Yes, her lock is still broken and I'm going to fix it," Griffin explained. "Can I help?" Emma asked eagerly. "I'm good with tools, you said so." Griffin smiled. Emma had always been his little shadow, especially after her mother, Melissa, had left them 3 years ago. "Sure, Pumpkin, you can be my assistant." They arrived at Gabriella's Victorian townhouse at 6 on the dot. The three-story structure stood proudly among a row of similar homes in one of the city's more affluent neighborhoods. Griffin felt suddenly self-conscious about his beaten-up truck parked in front of such an elegant residence. Emma bounded up the steps ahead of him, tool bag in hand, and rang the doorbell before Griffin could stop her. A moment later, Gabriella opened the door, looking more casual than the day before in jeans and a simple blouse, though Griffin suspected even her casual clothes cost more than his entire wardrobe. "Hello again," Gabriella said warmly, then noticed Emma. "And who's this?" "I'm Emma," his daughter announced. "I'm 8.5 and I'm Dad's assistant today." Gabriella's face lit up with a genuine smile. "Well, I'm very pleased to meet you, Emma. I'm Gabriella. Thank you both for coming to my rescue." She led them inside, and Griffin couldn't help but take in the interior of the home. The entryway opened into a spacious living room furnished with an elegant mix of modern and antique pieces. Everything spoke of wealth, but with taste rather than ostentation. "You have a beautiful home," Griffin commented as he knelt to examine the lock. "Thank you. I just moved in, so I'm still getting settled," Gabriella replied. "Can I offer you something to drink? Water? Coffee?" "Water would be great, thank you," Griffin said, already pulling tools from his bag. As Gabriella disappeared into the kitchen, Emma whispered loudly, "Dad, she must be rich." "This house is like a castle." "Emma," Griffin admonished gently, "it's not polite to talk about people's money, and keep your voice down." When Gabriella returned with water for both of them, Griffin was already disassembling the lock. "The cylinder is pretty worn out," he explained, "and there's a bit of rust in the mechanism. I brought a replacement that should work perfectly with this type of door." "You came prepared," Gabriella noted, sounding impressed. "Dad's always prepared," Emma chimed in proudly. "He can fix anything." Griffin felt his ears redden at his daughter's praise. "Not anything, but I do okay with locks and leaky faucets." As he worked, Emma bombarded Gabriella with questions, which she answered with remarkable patience. Griffin learned that Gabriella had recently moved from San Francisco, that she had no children but loved kids, and that she was 34, just 2 years younger than him. "What do you do for work?" Griffin asked, testing the new lock mechanism. There was a brief hesitation before Gabriella answered, "I'm in tech, software development mostly." Griffin nodded, not pressing for details. In his experience, people who downplayed their jobs usually had reasons for doing so. Maybe she was taking a break from a high-pressure position, or perhaps she valued her privacy. "Dad builds houses and fixes things," Emma informed Gabriella. "He's the best dad ever, and he makes the best mac and cheese in the universe." Griffin laughed, embarrassed by his daughter's enthusiastic endorsement. "The mac and cheese is just from a box, but I add extra cheese." "That's the secret ingredient," Emma said with complete seriousness. Gabriella laughed, a sound that seemed to brighten the room. "I'd love to try this famous mac and cheese sometime." The words hung in the air, and for a moment their eyes met. Griffin felt an unexpected connection, a spark of something that he hadn't felt in a very long time. The moment was broken when Emma announced, "You should come over for dinner. Dad can make mac and cheese, and I can show you my soccer trophies." "Emma," Griffin said gently, "Miss Reyes is probably very busy." "Actually," Gabriella said, surprising him, "I'd love to come for dinner, if that's a genuine invitation, of course." Griffin found himself nodding before he could overthink it. "How about Friday? Say around 6:30, Friday at 6:30 sounds perfect," Gabriella confirmed, smiling. After finishing with the lock and declining Gabriella's attempt to pay him more than his usual rate, Griffin and Emma headed home. As they drove, Griffin couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. "I like her, Dad," Emma declared from the back seat. "She seems nice," Griffin agreed, trying to sound casual. "And she's coming for dinner," Emma said excitedly. "We should clean the house and get flowers. Ladies like flowers." Griffin smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm but felt a twinge of anxiety. Their small 2-bedroom rental was nothing like Gabriella's elegant townhouse. What would she think of their modest home? And more importantly, why did her opinion matter so much to him after just 2 brief meetings? Friday arrived faster than Griffin expected. He spent Thursday evening cleaning their small house, making it as presentable as possible. It was a cozy place, a little worn around the edges, but it was home. Emma had insisted on buying flowers for the table, spending $5 of her allowance on a bunch of cheerful daisies from the grocery store. At precisely 6:30, the doorbell rang. Emma raced to answer it, and Griffin heard his daughter's excited greeting followed by Gabriella's warm response. When they entered the kitchen, Griffin almost dropped the pot he was holding. Gabriella looked stunning in a simple blue dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She was holding a bottle of wine and a small gift bag. "Something smells wonderful," she said, handing Griffin the wine, "and this is for Emma." She passed the gift bag to his daughter. Emma tore into it eagerly and gasped with delight when she pulled out a professional-quality soccer ball. "Wow. This is like the ones the real players use. I hope that's okay," Gabriella said to Griffin. "Emma mentioned she plays soccer and I thought she might like it." "It's very generous," Griffin replied, touched by her thoughtfulness. "Thank you." Dinner was a lively affair. Emma dominated the conversation, telling Gabriella about school, soccer, and her dream of becoming either a veterinarian or a professional soccer player she hadn't decided yet. Gabriella listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Gabriella her room and her collection of soccer trophies. Griffin used the opportunity to clean up and prepare coffee and the simple apple crumble he'd made for dessert. When the women in his life returned, Emma yawned dramatically. "I'm tired. I think I'll go to bed early." Griffin raised an eyebrow, seeing right through his daughter's transparent attempt at matchmaking. "It's only 8 o'clock, pumpkin. I'm growing. I need extra sleep," Emma insisted with such conviction that both adults had to stifle their laughter. After reluctantly agreeing to let Emma go to bed, though Griffin suspected she would read under the covers with a flashlight, he and Gabriella moved to the small living room with their coffee and dessert. "Your daughter is amazing," Gabriella said, settling onto the couch. "You're doing a wonderful job with her." Griffin felt a flush of pride. "She makes it easy. She's a good kid." "She mentioned her mom isn't around," Gabriella asked cautiously. Griffin nodded, setting his coffee down. "Melissa left when Emma was 5. She decided family life wasn't for her after all." He tried to keep the bitterness from his voice. "She lives in California now, calls on birthdays and Christmas sometimes." "I'm sorry," Gabriella said softly. "That must have been hard for both of you." "It was tough at first," Griffin admitted. "But we found our rhythm. What about you?" "Ever been married?" Gabriella shook her head. "Never found the right person. I've been focused on my career for so long that relationships always took a back seat." "The software development business must keep you busy," Griffin commented. Gabriella hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Actually, I own a tech company, Reyes Innovations." Griffin's eyes widened. He'd heard of Reyes Innovations. It was a major player in the tech industry. "Wow, that's impressive." "It's just a company," Gabriella said with a shrug that didn't quite achieve the casualness she was aiming for. "But it's why I tend not to lead with that information when meeting new people. It changes how they see me." Griffin nodded, understanding. "People treat you differently when they know you have money." "Exactly," Gabriella said, looking relieved that he understood. "I wanted to tell you because, well, I like you, Griffin, and Emma. I wanted to be honest with you." The simple confession hung in the air between them. Griffin felt his heart rate quicken. "I like you too," he admitted, "but our worlds are very different, are they?" Gabriella challenged gently. "We're just two people who enjoy each other's company. The rest is circumstantial." Griffin couldn't argue with her logic, but concern still nagged at him. "I'm a construction worker and part-time handyman. You're a successful CEO. That's more than circumstantial. You're also a wonderful father, a kind man who stops to help strangers, and someone who makes excellent mac and cheese," Gabriella countered with a smile. "Those things matter more to me than what you do for a living." Their conversation flowed easily after that, moving from serious topics to lighter ones. Griffin found himself opening up in a way he hadn't with anyone in years, and Gabriella seemed equally comfortable sharing stories from her life. By the time she left, it was well past midnight. and Griffin felt like he'd known her for years rather than days. Over the next few weeks, Gabriella became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for weekend outings to the park and cheered loudly at Emma's soccer games. Griffin found himself looking forward to their time together with an intensity that both thrilled and frightened him. One Saturday afternoon, while Emma was at a friend's birthday party, Gabriella invited Griffin to her house for lunch. As they sat on her back patio, enjoying the early summer sunshine, Griffin finally voiced the concern that had been nagging at him. "Doesn't it bother you that I can't give you the kind of life you're accustomed to?" he asked. Gabriella set down her glass and turned to face him directly. "Griffin, I grew up in a tiny apartment in the Bronx with parents who worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Everything I have now, I built from nothing. The money, the company, they're just things. They don't define me any more than your job defines you." Griffin hadn't known about her modest beginnings. The revelation shifted his perspective. "I just don't want you to wake up one day and realize you've made a mistake. The only mistake would be not giving us a chance because of insecurities that don't matter," Gabriella said firmly. She reached for his hand. "I'm falling in love with you, Griffin O'Connor, not your bank account or your job title." The confession stole Griffin's breath away. "I'm falling in love with you too," he admitted, the words feeling right as soon as they left his lips. "I have been since you invited an 8-year-old's endless questions about your life." When he leaned in to kiss her, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Their relationship deepened over the summer months. Griffin was initially hesitant to let Emma get too attached, but it quickly became clear that Gabriella was in their lives to stay. The three of them fell into an easy rhythm, spending weekends together and often sharing weeknight dinners. In August, Gabriella approached Griffin with a proposition. "I've been thinking," she began as they sat on his porch swing after Emma had gone to bed. "You mentioned that you've always wanted to start your own construction company but haven't had the capital." Griffin tensed slightly. They rarely discussed money by unspoken mutual agreement. "That's right." "Someday, maybe. What if someday could be now?" Gabriella suggested. "I'd like to invest in you, Griffin, as a business partner." Griffin pulled away slightly. "I can't take your money, Gabriella. It's not a gift," she clarified. "It's an investment. I believe in you and your skills. I've seen your work. You're talented and you have a vision. All you lack is capital, which I happen to have in abundance." Griffin was silent for a long moment. "I've always wanted to do this on my own." "And you would be," Gabriella insisted. "My money doesn't come with strings, Griffin. It's just a tool, like your hammer or your saw. The craftsmanship, the business plan, the execution, that's all you." They discussed it for hours that night and many nights after. Eventually, Griffin agreed to accept her investment, but only with proper legal documentation establishing it as a business arrangement, not a personal one. By fall, Griffin O'Connor Construction was a reality. He started small, with 2 employees and a focus on renovation projects, but his reputation for quality work and fair pricing quickly spread. Within months, he had more business than he could handle. Meanwhile, Gabriella had begun working from home more often, claiming she preferred the peace of the small town to the hustle of her company's headquarters in the city. Griffin suspected it had more to do with wanting to be closer to him and Emma, a thought that warmed him every time it crossed his mind. One evening in late October, as they were cleaning up after dinner at Gabriella's house, which had gradually become a second home to Griffin and Emma, Gabriella broached a subject they hadn't yet discussed. "I've been thinking about the future," she said, drying a plate with careful attention. "About us?" Griffin handed her another plate. "What about us?" "I love you," she said simply. "I love Emma. These past months have been the happiest of my life." Griffin set down the dish he was washing and turned to face her. "They've been the happiest of mine, too." "I want more of this," Gabriella continued, gesturing to the domesticity around them. "All of it. Every day." Griffin felt his heart swell with emotion. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" Gabriella shook her head, a nervous smile playing at her lips. "Actually, I'm asking if you'd consider marrying me." The question caught Griffin completely off guard. In his mind, he'd been working up the courage to ask her the same thing, but hadn't yet felt worthy enough to do so. "You want to marry me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. More than anything, Gabriella confirmed, but only if Emma approves. She comes first. Griffin pulled Gabriella into his arms, dish soap suds and all. I love you so much, he murmured against her hair. Yes, I'll marry you, but I need to ask Emma first. That night, after Gabriella drove them home, Griffin sat down with his daughter to have an important conversation. Emma, I need to talk to you about something serious, he began. Emma looked up from her homework, immediately attentive. Is something wrong, Dad? No, sweetheart, nothing's wrong. It's about Gabriella. You know she's very special to me, right? Emma nodded solemnly. You love her, and she loves you. I can tell because you look at each other the way Princess Tiana and Prince Naveen do in the movie. Griffin smiled at the comparison. That's right. And I was wondering how you would feel if Gabriella became a more permanent part of our family. If she became your stepmom. Emma's eyes widened. Are you going to marry her? I'd like to, yes, but only if you're okay with it. You're the most important person in my life, Pumpkin. Your happiness comes first. Emma was silent for a moment, her young face serious with thought, then she broke into a wide grin. Yes, 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 Gabriella is awesome. She helps me with my homework and she never gets mad when I miss a goal in soccer and she makes you smile all the time. Relief and joy washed over Griffin. So you approve? Totally, Emma exclaimed, throwing her arms around her father's neck. When are you going to tell her? Can I be there? Can I be the flower girl? Can we live in her big house? Will I get my own bathroom? Griffin laughed, hugging his daughter tightly. Slow down, Pumpkin. One thing at a time. First, let me officially ask her, okay? The next day, Griffin took Gabriella back to the front door where they had first met. With Emma watching excitedly from the truck, he knelt down and proposed properly, presenting her with a modest but elegant ring that he'd been paying off in installments for weeks. Gabriella's yes was immediate and tearful. Emma couldn't contain her excitement any longer and ran to join them, creating a group hug on the doorstep that lasted several minutes. They were married in the spring, in a simple ceremony in Gabriella's, now their backyard. Emma proudly served as flower girl and best daughter, a title she had insisted upon. Griffin's construction crew and Gabriella's executive team mingled easily, finding common ground in their shared affection for the couple. As they exchanged vows under a bower of flowers, Griffin marveled at how different his life was from a year ago. He had a thriving business, a beautiful home, and most importantly, a family that was no longer broken but made whole again through an unexpected love. During the reception, Emma stood up to make an impromptu toast, silencing the gathering with the authority only a 9-year-old can command. I'm really happy today because my dad found someone who loves him as much as I do, she announced. And I found a new mom who doesn't mind that I talk a lot and ask too many questions. So I want to say thank you to that stupid lock that wouldn't open, because without it, we might never have met Gabriella. Laughter rippled through the guests, and Griffin squeezed Gabriella's hand. To jammed locks, Gabriella whispered, raising her glass to him. And to the hearts they unlock, Griffin replied, kissing his bride as their guests applauded. 1 year later, Gabriella and Griffin welcomed a baby boy, Lucas, into their family. Emma took her role as big sister seriously, proudly showing everyone who visited how gently she could hold her baby brother. Griffin O'Connor Construction had grown to employ 15 people, specializing in historical renovations. Gabriella continued to run Reyes Innovations, though she had restructured the company to allow her more time at home with her family. One evening, as they sat on their porch swing watching Emma practice soccer drills in the yard while baby Lucas slept in Gabriella's arms, Griffin reflected on the journey that had brought them here. I still can't believe that helping a stranger with a lock led to all of this, he said, his arm around his wife's shoulders. Gabriella leaned into him. I think about that a lot, too. What if I had called a locksmith instead of struggling with it myself? What if you had decided not to stop and help? I'm glad I did, Griffin said simply. Me too, Gabriella replied, though I should confess something. After about a month, I found out that lock wasn't actually broken. I just wasn't using the key correctly. Griffin laughed softly. Really? Really? Gabriella confirmed with a mischievous smile. So technically, you fixed a problem that didn't exist. I'd say I fixed exactly the right problem, Griffin countered, kissing her forehead. The key to your heart just needed a little adjustment. Gabriella groaned at the pun but snuggled closer. That was terrible. But true, Griffin insisted, watching as Emma successfully executed a particularly tricky move with her soccer ball, the same one Gabriella had given her on that first dinner together. As the sun set behind their home, casting golden light across their yard, Griffin O'Connor knew with absolute certainty that he had found something far more valuable than financial success. He had found love in its purest form, unexpected, unconditional, and unbreakable.